Hello everyone, today we are talking about a topic that's very dear to my heart. You see, when I was 15 years old, my father passed away, and that left me as a 15-year-old young man trying to figure out what does it mean to be a man? What is manliness? Now, my father was 66 when he passed away, and I was 15. So there was quite a big age gap between the two of us that I'm greatly appreciative of, because I was able to see into the past of what different generations saw as masculinity. Now, my father was in the military before he became a pastor, so he was a man who knew how to protect. And I remember when I was younger, when he was a pastor, that there was this one guy who was drunk, and he was deeply aggravated with my father for whatever reason. And I remember watching him come up and ball his fist up and punch my father in the face really hard. Now, I remember watching my father as he took the punch, and he got up and, within love and complete peace, he hugged the man, told him that, he loved him and that there was no ill will between the two of them. Within that, I got a sneak peek into what masculinity used to be and what being a man used to be characterized as. Now, being a man within past generations was characterized by self-control. The more control you have over yourself, your own desires, whether they be physical, and the more control you have over your own strength and causing and choosing to be able to control your strength and control your desires and control yourself. Men who had control over their desires, having only one wife, or men who had control over their strength, choosing not to use it to hurt innocent people, and control over their mouths and what they say, speaking in a way that was kind and considerate to all, and not emotionally lashing out at others and causing violence, was a great skill that showed that you were capable of leading yourself, leading your family, and leading those around you within a peaceful and controlled environment. It was this idea that men had the capability to be able to cause harm, but those who you want as leaders are those who choose not to, because they care about those around them and themselves. Now, within modern society, as a young man, when I looked around, I feel like this idea of manliness has completely changed now, with opposite values being upheld nowadays. The shift within masculinity, where nowadays this idea that the men who are the most masculine are uncontrollable by society, by women, and most predominantly by themselves. It's this idea that men's natures are so rapid and so uncontrollable that they will not be restrained to one person or controlled by society to being with one woman, but will allow themselves to be sporadic with all. Also, this idea of controlling their emotions, where nowadays it is the men who are seen as the most violent, those who are the most capable and ready to cause violence, whether it be physical or just speaking in a manner that is uncontrolled. They can say whatever they want, whenever they want. And that is this idea of being a true man, being completely uncontrolled by all. Now, these men will argue and say that those who choose only one wife, or those who choose to control themselves, are doing so not out of their own choice, but rather out of fear. Fear that society has demanded them to do so, or is trying to control them into only having one wife, or into controlling how they speak. That if they were to let loose, then they would choose for themselves to say whatever they want and to be as hurtful as they want. But I don't believe that is the case. Now, I see an irony within this that is very fascinating, is this idea that within society, the main fear of modern men is to be controlled by society or by a woman or by anyone, or even being controlled by themselves. They would rather be uncontrolled or completely free. But within this quest for freedom, it often ends up leading these men into the most severe form of control that could ever be, with these men often ending up being more controlled than those who control themselves. Take, for example, the man who chooses to sleep around with multiple women. He often ends up paying child support and alimony and is forced to by the government more than the man who just chooses to be with one woman. Or take, for example, the man who decides that he is going to be uncontrolled physically and causes arguments and fights around those around him. That man often ends up getting beaten up by those around him, or worse, ends up going to jail for causing a disruption or a fight, and thus is controlled by the government themselves. Now, Satan has done this from the beginning, this idea of putting forth slavery as freedom. This has always been Satan's motive from the beginning. With Adam and Eve, he came and said to them that you eat this apple and you will be as gods. You will be free from whatever this oppression that God is placing upon them. But in reality, as we all know, this freedom was truly control from the beginning. Self-control and this idea of choosing to control yourself and your emotions and who you are with, doing this out of love and out of true companionship, that is not control, but that is the exact opposite. That is a freedom, a choice. As the Bible says, my yoke is light. I believe that true masculinity and truly being a man is about not control, not the fight for control, but rather the surrendering of oneself to Christ. As the Bible says, those who love their lives will lose them, and those who lose their lives for my name's sake will find them again. This idea that when we try to grab control for ourselves, when we try to be free from social niceties and from being controlled, we must remember that God is not a controlling God. God is a God of love. And that love, within love there are laws, but those laws are not there to control. Those laws are there to make our lives better, not to make our lives worse. Jesus said that no one takes his life away from him, but he gives it up freely. And as men, we are called to love and to be like Jesus. As such, I believe that within our lives, it is our calling to surrender ourselves to Christ, of ourselves, not out of fear that society will hurt us or will deem us as wrong if we do. Because honestly, nowadays, society has changed to the point that if we choose not to follow Christ, we are actually more socially accepted by society. But truly, it is about surrendering ourselves to Christ of our own free will, out of love for Him, knowing that it is the best for us. And that self-control, really within surrendering ourselves to Christ, self-discipline within Christ, that Jesus is the one who is really at the control of our lives. He is the one who is really the head of our lives. And that self-discipline allows us to be able to lead others around us, not in a controlling manner, but be able to lead in a manner of love and of compassion, so that we can glorify God, so that when we live our lives and when we walk around, it is not us who is seen, it is not us who is heard, but it is God within us. And that, I believe, is true freedom. That, I believe, is the truth of what it means to be children of God.